Good afternoon, everyone. I call this April 25th, 2023 zoning meeting of the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners to order. We will have a moment of silence, and I will lead the pledge after that moment. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3, Nick Hamp and Enrico Gradi, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, good afternoon. Nicholas Ham, Director for Planning and Development Services, and we do have one slight modification to the order of the items as they appear on the agenda. For items 5A and 6A, we would request that the Commission swap those in terms of order. They're related requests, and the plan amendment sets the stage for the zone change to occur, so it would be preferable if that item is heard and decided before you move on to the zone change portion of this. And with that, we'll proceed as scheduled, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Item 4, approval of the minutes. I move approval of the November 15th, 2022 zoning meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So we will move on to the item 6 on the consent agenda. Is that right? We will proceed with the public hearing item and hearing procedures. Madam Clerk, can you please issue a resolution number for?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For item, does 6A become 5A? Okay. We have AR 2023-43.
Great, thank you. So, staff presentation. Let's see. Please describe the public hearing item to be considered and state the staff recommendations for the item.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Baca and Commissioners. My name is Carl Redman, and I am a planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. This is agenda item 6A, and it's case number SPR 2023-0001. This is an agenda item. This agenda item is related to an item on the consent agenda, which is an associated zone change, as Mr. Ham stated, for a request for the SDIMU zoning, which is a zoning that's permissive or allowed in the Isleta Boulevard Sector Development Plan. But this is a case to amend the plan itself, and the amendment is to expand the plan boundary to accompany 2 adjacent parcels, and those parcels are legally described as lots 2 and 3, Block 3 Paradise Edition, and they're located at 1534 Blake Road Southwest, and they contain approximately 0.41 acres. The request just seeks to expand the plan boundary to include the applicant's entire property, which is currently being used as a church and its associated parking lot. The 2 parcels in question, the easternmost is currently zoned R1, while the westernmost parcel, which is the parcel that's adjacent to the current boundary of the plan, is zoned C1. As part of the request, the applicant has demonstrated the request furthers the land use goals of all of the applicable planning documents for Bernalillo County, including the comprehensive plan, the Southwest Area Plan, as well as the Isleta Boulevard Village Center and Sector Development Plan, which is the plan proposed for adoption or amendment. And the applicant has also demonstrated the request responds to the county's Resolution 116-86 ordinance, in that the request would be more advantageous to the community in adopting this amendment for the parcels and the accompanying zoning. Staff has not received any notice of opposition to this request. The County Planning Commission recommended approval of this request at its March 1st, 2023 hearing, as it is consistent with planning guidance and the health, safety, and general welfare of the county residents. And with that, I will stand for questions from the commission.
Any questions from staff? Oh, so we will now convene the public hearing for item 6A and hear from public speakers participating remotely or via Zoom. Julianne, do we have any speakers?
Madam Chair, we did not have anybody sign up
Okay.
for this hearing.
Thank you. Since there are no speakers, we will move to discussion and a vote. So I move approval of AR 2023-43, amending the Isleta Boulevard and Village Center sector development.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Quesada. Any discussion? Questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, and that passes. Thank you. So now we will move to formally 5A, now 6A. Madam Clerk, can you please issue an ordinance number? The consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Oh, sorry, I'm already doing that. There we go. Ordinance number.
Yes, Madam.
Sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair. That item is ordinance 2023-8.
Dash 8. Okay. Where are we on that? Do we have a presentation on this item?
It is consent, so you can move for a vote. Thank
Okay,
you.
move for a vote on consent.
I move for approval, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Sorry for the confusion. So, we now move to item 7, NAO appeal. We'll proceed with a quasi-judicial appeals process restricted to the parameters set for staff and appellant presentations. This process does not permit public comment, and new evidence will not be accepted. We will proceed with an abbreviated version of our standard appeals procedure as follows. The staff will have 5 minutes to present. Secondly, the appellant's presentation will be at 10 minutes. The staff will have closure at 5 minutes, and then there will be board discussion and questions, and then an action. If there are any, before we start with the staff presentation, Madam Clerk, can you please swear in all those giving testimony today?
All those providing testimony, please stand up, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. Sir.
The appellants? Are the appellants present?
Okay. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give at this hearing shall be the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howe?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, good afternoon again. Nicholas Ham, Director for Planning and Development Services. I'll be presenting the next 2 items to you today. The first is agenda item 7A. This is case number ENFC 2022-1054. It is an appeal of the nuisance abatement hearing officer's recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to deem a property to be a nuisance for multiple violations of county code. For purposes of context, going back to 2016, this property has been in violation in some way with the county's zoning code. Subsequent to that, in 2017, the property owner was granted a special use permit for a period of 5 years to grant them an opportunity to operate a paintball business on this property. During that 5-year approval period, the property owner failed to meet any of the conditions of approval that were required of the special use permit. And the county pursued its enforcement proceedings throughout that period without success. And ultimately, that permit expired in 2022. And the county engaged its additional enforcement proceedings through either the zoning code or the property maintenance code or the building code. And ultimately, this was referred to the county's nuisance abatement office. So what we have today at this property is a set of unpermitted and unsafe structures that were deemed to be through the county's professionals that have certifications through the building code and the property maintenance code. They don't have utilities connected, they don't have adequate water or wastewater facilities that were permitted, and they were erected without approval from the county and the requisite permits through the building department. In addition to the building issues, the property owner has also been harboring what the county would refer to as outdoor storage of materials, accumulation of trash and junk. A large amount of tires have been accumulated on the property. And so through the nuisance abatement process, the county's enforcement staff petitioned the county's nuisance abatement hearing officer for resolution of this. She found, after consideration of evidence at a public hearing, that this was indeed a public nuisance and made a recommendation to you all to deem this a nuisance so that the county could utilize its authority and resources to go in and remedy the nuisances that have been identified. The property owner appealed that recommendation. So generally what would happen is that this would go to the Board of County Commissioners, you would make a determination, and then an appeal would be heard after that. The appeal came in before it even made it to you all, so this is going to be sort of a hybrid appeal and determination request before you today. I have some pictures, if you don't mind, Julianne, so I can show you just the condition of the property. And these were taken as recently as yesterday. So this is a property located on Pajarito Mesa. It is, when you go up and over the escarpment, it is one of the first properties that you see entering this area of the county. So it's significant in terms of visual access for members of the community. So it's one of the first things you see when you go up there. This is the property owner's structures and buildings that were placed or erected without permits. There are a number of poles that were placed on the property. I think they were related to netting for the paintball business. Those didn't receive permits either. The electrical pole there, that never completed the county's electrical permitting process, so there's questions about the safety and the workmanship of the electrical installation that occurred there. As you can see, there's a number of tires and trash that have been accumulated there. More pictures of the poles here. Tires, there's an inoperative vehicle, pallets, more tires and more trash. And this continues throughout the property. In the course of the county initiating its enforcement proceedings here, the property owner, Ms. Hughes, she owns a number of properties on the Mesa. And what we've experienced is that, I guess I would describe it as a bit of a shell game. When the nuisances were identified on this property, they were then moved to properties in the immediate vicinity that she owns. So one of these is across the road from the property that is the subject of today's proceeding. And another is right near the entrance of the landfill that's on the Mesa. So again, another set of pictures showing just the issues and the accumulation of tires and trash that's going on up there in violation of county code. I'll show you the second property where other issues. So you can see these are a little bit further off, but there's a number of tires in the background there. And so I think what I would characterize this as is a consistent pattern to disregard county code, despite multiple efforts through both the zoning enforcement process, the special use permit enforcement process, and now the nuisance abatement enforcement process. We just haven't been able to get any traction, and it would be apparent to us that it's now time for the county to engage its authority to remedy these issues. I'd also add that the property owner is the president of the Pajarito Neighborhood Association. I'm going to opine a little bit here, but I think that this is probably not the best example for the citizens up there as far as showing how a property should be developed the right way and the legal way. And Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'll stand for questions.
Sorry, my microphone was off. I think we'll move and we'll provide equal time to the property owner.
Yes, ma'am.
So that'll be 10 minutes plus a little bit, más o menos.
You need my name and my address and all that?
Yes, please.
Pat Savel Hughes, 4709 Skyway Court, Southwest Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, so I started my American Dream venture in 1987, is when I bought my first 10-acre tract. I was raising 4 boys, and I thought, I need to get a piece of the rock. And I found some cheap property on the Pajarito. It was a whole 10,000, 1,000 an acre. I thought, wow, I could live up there someday. Okay. Well, that's how I got started. One thing led to another, and I was encouraged to get my real estate license. So in 1989, I got my real estate license and got involved with that. And as time went by, properties came up for sale, and I thought, well, this is going to be my retirement. So I started buying properties, saving my money and buying more properties. Then later on, when subdivisions, I did my first subdivision, I believe, in 1997. And at that time, when you got a surveyor, you were told where to put your roads, and Bernalillo County zoning was a little more lenient. They were trying to encourage growth up there. So that's my, anyways, I've been working on the cleaning up 9725 Pajarito. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. I'm not going to sell it. As far as moving it next door, well, there's a problem with that because the only person I will allow to go in there and do paintball, he has decided he doesn't want anything to do with government. So I will deal with that as that comes by. Everything on the Pajarito has issues. And one of it is because in the 1930s, when they sold these properties, they did a site plan with 10-acre tracts, but they're all together. There are no easements. They didn't think there would be anything up there, except for maybe mining for oil. Well, as time went by, people bought properties up there and they decided to live off the grid. You have people that are up there, have been there for 30 years. We have about 450 families up there. I'm also the president of the water station. I make sure that these people get their water, the machine is functional, and that everybody is happy. And it gets tested. And it's city water, it's not well water. Everybody assumes it's well water. It's not. It comes from the city. Bernalillo County was given I don't know how it went, but $450,000 from the feds to bring that up there. And Sandra Montes was the one that initiated it. That's all I have to say. Right now, I'm dealing with dogs. Dogs are being dumped up there. I just took in an Australian Shepherd with a blue eye and a brown eye and 2 puppies. Why people dump up there, I do not know. County has their signs up there. They don't seem to care. They don't understand. These dogs, these cats do not live off the land. I've posted that in Craigslist. Shame on you for dumping your dogs. Take them to the animal control, right? So now I'm chasing a Chihuahua. The other thing, last Saturday, I saw a truck go by. I'm up there frequently, driving around my properties. And I saw a truck go by and I thought, you know, he's loaded with trash. I wonder where he's going with that. I've chased them before and, you know, they redirect to the landfill. Well, and I didn't pay attention. I was busy watering my pine trees and my willow. I've been trying to, which is beautiful right now. It's a nice, big, beautiful willow if I keep it watered. Pretty soon I saw this plume of smoke over the hill. And I thought to myself, well, that's either a car that's been stolen and lit on fire, but the fact is we have terrible, terrible winds up there. So I went up there and sure enough, it was a live fire. And I called the fire department and I waited for them to come and I gave them directions on how to get there. And they put it out. So I have a lot of responsibility. My mouth is dry, I'm sorry. It's like a popcorn fart. I personally have a lot of time vested in the Pajarito, And it's been pretty much my life. The day my special use expired, I was in the hospital getting a pacemaker put in. 5 days later, I did a phone meeting with the planners, and I was advised to put my tires in storage. I'm sorry, that does not make sense. A lot of things that county zoning is pushing on the Pajarito does not make sense. The area is mesa. It is not a half-acre lot in the valley. We don't have any utilities. The people that live up there choose not to live with utilities. They want to be off the grid. They use solar. They have refrigerators, washers, dryers, everything with their solar. They haul their water. A few have wells. It's $49,000 to put down a well now. I don't know what to say. This is the American dream, freedom. And we have government who is pushing their agenda, and I'm sorry, our tires up there do not collect mosquitoes. We don't have mosquitoes up there because we don't have any water. And the only reason why they would be a hazard, as in lit on fire, is if somebody came on my property and intentionally put them on fire. Otherwise, unlike combustible manure or anything like that, it does not create a fire by itself. So my tires are not hazardous, but they are my property. I have projects I do with them. I'm also giving them away to people who are doing projects of their own. If you Google on the internet, you will see all kinds of things that people do with tires. And it's not like we don't have a zillion of them on the road. So, doing the best I can. I am cleaning it up. I know what I have to do. I'm not stupid, but I definitely believe in my rights. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Ham, you have about 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, Commissioners,
Sorry.
thanks. I guess I will just close by saying that the county does have an expectation on the Pajarito Mesa, just as it does anywhere else in the county, that people comply with the rules that are adopted by the commission, the state, whatever relevant local jurisdiction might have control over a certain aspect of our lives. Our department has worked in good faith with this individual to try to get to some point of resolution, and I just don't have any results to show for it. So I think this is appropriate for us to move to the next stage, where the county can undertake its authority and use its resources to remedy these issues. Illegal dumping and tire dumping on Pajarito Mesa is a huge issue for the county. It's something that we take very seriously. And having the first property that you see when you go up onto the escarpment filled with tires is a problematic message for the county, not only for just following the rules, but sending a message that this might be okay up here, and it certainly is not. So with that, Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'll stand for any questions, and I urge your support for denial of the appeal and approval of the resolution submitted by the county's hearing officer.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a weekly meeting every month. I mean, a monthly meeting every month based strictly on the Pajarito Mesa. We definitely have our hands full with this. I think some of her comments, come from, a systemic problem with actually, people buying property up there and living up there. But that ship has sailed. we have, you know, like she said, we have 400 families up there.
Sure.
And we have to protect them and make sure that they're safe. And and so, you know, with that being said, you know, we have to live by these rules no matter what part of my district we live in. And they're in place for a reason. I looked at the pictures of her property, and I'll be honest with you, I've seen a whole lot worse. A whole lot worse. I think she's really close to even being in compliance. I think that, you know, if she would come and make sure that everything was inspected and everything was done properly, I think we're closer to that for the first time ever seeing a property than the opposite, right? Because usually when I'm involved, when we're getting to a property, it is so bad that the only alternative is to tear it down and clean it up. This is not quite, in my opinion, there. I just want it to be done within the rules. And I have to stand for the rules, Ms. Hughes. I appreciate your comments, but if I don't stick to the rules for everybody, then it really becomes the Wild West out there. And it already kind of is. Me and you know that. And I think you're a great leader up there, and you're a great example. And if we can get you to be the best out there, then we would expect everybody to follow along with that. And so the tires that we had to clean up at the Rio Puerco costed us a lot of money. I know, and they keep showing up. And so, you know, the tires is we're having a bad problem with tires, and it's not your fault. It's people going up there and dumping them. You know, yours, I saw what you were using yours for. Most of them, it's a paintball field. It's where they hide behind the tires and whatnot. So maybe there's something we can look at in the future on if they're used in a certain way. But I'm telling you, our tire problem and our dumping problem up there is completely out of control. And so I'm sorry that you're here, but we have to abide by the rules. And so I'm going to have to stick with staff at this point, but I want you to be able to reach out to my office so to see what I can do to assist you to come into compliance so that way we're all on the same page. I just want to be on the same page so that we're setting a good example. So please reach out to my office so we can see what we can do with working with Nick and the resources I may have with some of the community members on how we can go out and help you make sure that it's done correctly. And I think we can go back and look at permitting if it's done correctly, right, and re-inspect on some of these issues.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Quesada, the intention of Planning and Development Services is always to facilitate someone going through a process. And that includes getting a building permit, an electrical permit, whatever that might be. And in instances of nuisance properties, it's always to try to get the property owner to take responsibility for the issues that we identify. So say, I'm going to play a hypothetical game here today. If the commission approves this resolution and next week Ms. Hughes removes the tires of her own volition, we take no additional action. Our intent here and our motivation is purely to remedy the issue that we identified. Using county money and county resources is a last resort, literally the last resort for us. We always try to encourage the property owner to do it on their own.
Yeah, and I realize that, Nick. Me and you have done a lot of that for a lot of people. I just wanted Ms. Hughes to know that up here, I work for her, you know, and so I have to figure out as a county commissioner how I can assist her through my office to get her into compliance and to help her, you know, make sure that she is the leader up there and that she is setting a good example. Because me and you know, Nick, that if I drove around the Pajarito Mesa, there's a lot of really bad things up there. And you're not denying that, and I know that.
I can't.
But, you know, we want to make sure that people are complying, but we also want to be part of the solution. And so I'm asking her to reach out to my office so we can look at some of these things and, you know, and see how we can assist on helping her get to these places where she's doing the right thing. That's all I want. Because at the end of the day, I think we all looked at those pictures. We've seen a lot worse in our district. I think she's really close to doing the right thing, and I think we can get her there. And, you know, I want to be able to be a part of that solution. I'm going to support you now because I know this is our process. Because if I change on my process now, Mr. Ham, I know that we're going to have issues with some of these other properties that misused. If you saw some of the stuff in the South Valley, ma'am, you would stick by me saying, no, you cannot let that slide. So I have to stick with the rule. But I just wanted to, publicly say, I want you to reach out. Let's see how we can work with Nick and his department. And let's see if we can get to the place where we need to be so everything's in compliance. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Quesada. And I would agree with some of what you said. So for the purposes of this process, what I would like to do is offer a motion to uphold the nuisance abatement hearing officer's recommendation to the BCC to enter, demolish, or remove unsafe structures and remove all nuisances from the property. So therefore, I move to deny this appeal. That doesn't mean that this is over. As Mr. Ham stated, if you go in and improve your property, we will work with you. But for the purposes of today, I move a denial of the appeal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ham. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Ham. Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So item 7B. Again, we will proceed with an abbreviated version of our standard appeals procedure as follows. As I said before, a 5-minute presentation from staff, 10 minutes from the appellant, and 5 minutes closing from staff, and then on to board discussion and questions. And before we start with the staff presentation, Madam Clerk, can you please swear in all those who are given testimony today on this item 7B?
Madam Chair, just for a point of order, I believe for the first item, all appellants stood up.
They all did,
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ham.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, hello again. Nicholas Ham, Director for Planning and Development Services, presenting to you now item 7B. This is case number ENFC 2022-0502. It's an appeal of AR 2023-05. So this particular item has already been before the County Commission through the county's nuisance abatement hearing process. The Board of County Commissioners has approved a resolution for the county to enter, demolish unsafe structures, and to remove nuisances that have been identified. That decision was appealed, bringing us to today's proceeding. So when that occurs, another hearing is convened before the county's nuisance abatement hearing officer to consider any additional evidence, to allow for additional testimony, and for the evaluation to be made as to whether or not the resolution approved by the board should be rescinded or enforced. In this particular instance, the nuisance abatement hearing officer found that the resolution should be enforced. Going back just a little bit here, this property was in violation of the county zoning code in around 2021. After county zoning enforcement initiated, a structure fire occurred on the property. And that resulted in a total loss of the manufactured home that used to be on this property. One of the reasons that we started enforcement for zoning purposes is that we heard from the community continuously about the harborage of materials on the property, some of the unsafe practices that were occurring on the property, and ultimately, unfortunately, a fire did occur here. So county building, property maintenance, zoning, staff, all tried to work with the property owners to get them into compliance with the county zoning code. Essentially, what that would have meant was to remove not only the structure that was destroyed, but all of the materials that remained on the property. And Julianne, if you don't mind, if I could show some pictures now. So these were photos taken yesterday by our inspection staff. Unfortunately, I have to report that not only has the condition been maintained in its poor state, but I think it's actually worsened since the last time this was before the county commission. So as you can see, there are a number of items out here that are violations of the county zoning code. This is sort of functioning now as a mini salvage or junkyard, and it's in the middle of a neighborhood. And again, we do hear from folks continuously. Just this morning, we heard from people again about issues they're having out here. The fire department has responded to this property 12 times since the structure fire has occurred. The sheriff's department responds on a very regular basis. I think that we've inspected this property no less than 20 times or so, just responding to complaints from the community. So it is taking a significant amount of county resources. It is indeed what we would consider to be a nuisance, and it is a drain on this particular neighborhood, which is otherwise a really nice pocket of the county. Hard to imagine what it would be like having to live next to something like this. So the ask of the department to the commission today is to uphold the previously approved resolution, which would allow us to remedy these issues. And again, this process is not to take property from people. It's to remove issues that are affecting other members of the community, public safety issues, public health issues, issues that are affecting the fabric of neighborhoods that we support in our daily work. I'm going to let the pictures speak for themselves, and I'd also want to acknowledge that I think that the property owners, they've made efforts to get to where they need to be. I think that this has just proved to be too much of a task for an individual or a pair of individuals to take on their own. So I think a way that one might be able to look at that is that the county would be facilitating the resolution here. Once we get to a clean and secured property, options for redevelopment, for sale, things like that can start to open up for folks. But right now, in its current state, it just is a source of responses from our public safety staff, responses from our enforcement staff, and issues that this neighborhood is having to deal with. So with that, Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'll stand for questions.
Again, I think we'll go first to the property owner, and you have 10 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
Alejandro Valles, 706 Bear Canyon Lane, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87113. Administration of the board, hello. Mr. Benson, Mr. Olivas, Mrs. Baca, I believe you're a representative for our area. Ms. Barboa, hello. Mr. Quesada, former cast member with my father-in-law, Jimmy Ning, on Breaking Bad. He's one of the actors, fellow actors, so he's recently passed away. Bless his soul. He talked highly of you. First of all, I'm not sure where the gentleman gets his information. It sounds like secondhand information, and I've never once seen him on the property or near the property, or never really seen him before until I saw him at the meeting up here. But I just want to start off with this fire. He was incorrect, and he told you that this was the first notice or the first time we heard about this was in 2021. That's incorrect. The fire happened just a year ago in May of 2022. So with that being said, there's only been a year since this fire occurred. The first 2 months of this year, we weren't even allowed on our own property because there was an arson investigation. The reason for that is we were helping some people out, some people that became homeless during COVID. Our kids had already grown and moved out and went to college. So we had a couple extra rooms. And we loaned it out to some people that we thought were worthy, or were in need of something, of a place to stay. And the way they turned around and thanked us when we asked them and told them it was time to leave was to come back and burn down our house. So that's, again, that was a year off. He made it sound like we've had 2 years. We only had one. First 2 months of that year, weren't even allowed on the place. And he's saying that he also mentioned that many of the members of the community complain. All the complaints, if you look at the records, are coming from one address. I have 704 Bear Canyon. People live directly behind us, who have been feuding with us, have been harassing us since the day we moved in, and they continue to do this now. But nowadays they're using you guys, the county, as a tool to continue their personal vendetta against us. This has been going on for 15 years since the day we moved in. These people have slashed tires, broken windshields, keyed vehicles, poisoned my animals. I have record of that on the Bernalillo County Sheriff's and the Animal Control. I mean, they've pretty much ruined our lives. We had a family farm where we produced, fruit and meats for the community to sell in the growers markets, the corrales in Los Ranchos. Because of the nuisance abatement, I wasn't allowed to, even on the property, to take care of my animals. Then my animals were illegally seized by the animal control. We had a hearing. I ended up winning against the animal control and awarded my animals back because they wrongfully took them. They were telling everybody that the house place had been condemned, which it never was. So then the animal control took that and ran with it, took all of our animals and pretty much destroyed our family business. Like I say, a lot of tax dollars have been wasted. I agree, but if you look into that, all the complaints are coming from 704 Bear Canyon. This person we have the personal feud with. But to get with to actually address these violations, I'm gonna go back and I want to start off with this. Where it says right here on your Board of County Commissioners Administrative Resolution, it wasn't even numbered, so that tells me it's kind of a generic deal you send everybody. It says, whereas when the failure of an individual in our community to take care of his own property interferes with the use and enjoyment of neighboring property owners. Well, so far, the only thing that's interfered with the enjoyment was the taking away of our animals. Nearly everybody in the community that had grandkids or kids would stop daily on the way in and way out to hand feed our sheep and our alpacas. Everybody passed by, asked what happened, what's going on. They knew about the fire, but they didn't understand why our animals were taken away. So that's the only complaint I've ever heard or received, other than that one address on our property. We've as you can see on the picture there, we have put mesh that while we're under construction, we obtained a demolition permit. Again, looking at the pictures, if you put it back up, this whole area that's open was nothing but a pile of burned rubbish, probably about 4 foot high. We've rented 3 40-yard dumpsters, hired heavy equipment, I'm on a fixed income of Social Security, and I've spent nearly every penny that I have to rent 40 dumpsters just to fill trash, to haul it out. Unfortunately, we when the fire happened, we weren't carrying any. We had let our homeowners insurance lapse because my wife was laid off from her job at Rio Grande Travel. So we had just let it lapse by about a month or two when the fire occurred. So as a result, we didn't have the money to put down on a professional contractor to come and clean it up in a timely manner, or timely enough for the nuisance abatement team. But we worked on it constantly. It says it here in your own ordinances that as long as a property owner is complying or attempting to make the violations right, that they wouldn't pursue anything or wouldn't pursue the process. And it's like they totally ignore the things that we have accomplished. They make slight references to it, but I mean, we've been there nearly every day. I'm a double thoracotomy survivor. I'm not supposed to be breathing any dust or lifting anything over 25 pounds. I'm cut in half right here. I'm sure you don't want to see the grotesque scar, but I'm not even supposed to be doing this type of work. And I'm out there every day, sometimes from sun up to sundown, sweating, bleeding. Honestly, we have our blood, sweat, and tears in this property. It was my inheritance from my parents. And this is all we have left, and I feel like I've been bullied by the county government, starting with these people next door, them constantly calling. I mean, there's over 100 calls from the sheriff's department or more. I'd say several hundred calls to the sheriff's department where they have showed up on their time, and I know they have better things to do with their time than to come see what we're doing. They would constantly call. We'd be working on our property. And the sheriffs would have to stop what they're doing, come and see our permit, look at our permit, and say, okay, we had to respond to this because we got a call. Over and over and over again. Almost daily, we were there trying to work with, stop what we're doing to do that. They made it a point we were trying to work even into the night. They've made it illegal for us to be on our own property after dark, so we complied with that. Nobody was staying there after the dark. Once it started getting dark, we packed up and left, went to where we were staying. Thank God Jimmy Ning had a place for us to stay. Like I say, it's whatever hoops you guys have been putting in front of us. They'll set some hoops. They'll tell us we need to do this, clean up the rubbish, clean up the old building. We've since done that. It's the whole building, the burn, everything's completely gone. They complain about the trash. Like I say, we've rented 3 40-yard dumpsters, loaded all 3 of those. We're on our 4th dumpster, a 20-yard dumpster. Hasn't been hauled off yet, but it was scheduled to be hauled off yesterday, but it wasn't. So that's part of the stuff you see in the picture. It's supposed to be to the right side. All that was supposed to be hauled off by the roll-off dumpster people. We did have a few things on the left side by the shed there. my dump truck. I purchased a dump truck for this purpose to haul the rest of the remaining stuff off to another location. Unfortunately, it broke down on me after bringing it to my yard. I couldn't get it rolling again, but we have a mechanic working on that. So again, like the lady said, I know what needs to be done. And we've been doing it right along. We've been cooperating, complying, working hard day and night, but yet they just keep coming. You know, because it's almost as if they're trying to prove a purpose for this nuisance abatement committee or team, and I understand what it's for, but that's not us. You know, we're upholding citizens, both had jobs, both worked, raised 3 successful young adults that are now professionals themselves. For many years, we had, you know, beautiful gardens, beautiful fruit trees. People would come visit, look at the fruit trees, pick fruit, look at the animals. It was a place where the whole community would gather and meet from time to time, whether it was come pick fruit from our yard or come bring their grandchildren to visit our animals. It was like a petting zoo, really. And all that came to a halt after the fire and after we weren't allowed to even take care of our animals. But we went to a higher court when we appealed the animal control, and somebody with fresh eyes and an open mind that saw what was really going on completely shut them down. And I'm hoping that's what happens here, that some fresh eyes will see it and hear it, and from the outside, and, you know, kind of put yourself in our shoes. But we've been through a really bad accident where I had to have this surgery where I had broken ribs and punctured lungs. And like I said, the last 3 years have been hell for us, one thing after the other. And it just seems like we can't catch a break here. We're doing everything they ask of us, but it just doesn't stop. They continue adding more and more and more to the list. You know, we jump to two or three hoops, they'll add 2 or 3 more. So, I mean, nearly everything's gone from the property. They started complaining here later was the flammable materials. I've chopped down all the bamboo on the perimeter, gotten rid of that. We had pellets that were stockpiling that were quite a bit of a mess. We've given all the wood away to our neighbors, so all the wood's gone now. So the only 2 complaints that they really had were on the flammable materials, which we've since gotten rid of. So all I ask of you is to just you know, step back and look at it, you know, from our point of view, just for a second. And
Thank you, sir, that your time.
all right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for your time, for listening to him. Sorry I went over a little bit, but we are working on this, and we're just right at the very. We have maybe like 1 or 2 loads of the stored material on that cement block that you saw, and we're done.
Thank you, sir. I think
so-
staff has some
All right.
closing
Well, thank you for your
remarks,
time.
too. There may be questions. Mr. Ham?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'll just close to say that the photographs being shown here were taken yesterday. And they were taken by a county inspector that's certified to do this type of work. Mr. Vallejos is correct. I have not been to the property, and that's by design. When I started working on this project, I was serving as the county's hearing officer. So I was in a position where I could not visit the property just by design of a quasi-judicial proceeding. So, but we do have a number of staff that have been there, have collected evidence. That's been looked at by the county's nuisance abatement hearing officer. She's determined 2 times now that this is a nuisance. And I'd remind the commission that this body itself already determined this to be a nuisance property that needed to be remedied. So, you know, I sympathize with the folks. It's unfortunate the situation that they're in, but that doesn't create a scenario where a property can be maintained in this particular state. So I would urge your encouragement to deny the appeal and to uphold your previous resolution so that the county can go in and remove these nuisances from the property if the property owner is unable to do so in a reasonable amount of time. And Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. And Mr. Vallejos, I think that what we are doing here is what we have to do is be consistent with our laws, our zoning laws, and this has been identified and inspected, and a hearing officer has judged that this is a nuisance property. So I'm going to make a motion. This does not mean a taking of your property. This means that we are upholding the Board of County Commissioners' approval of Resolution AR 2023-05, approving entry, demolition, and cleaning of the nuisance property. So I move to deny the appeal. And again, we offer you to continue to work with staff, but we need to be consistent with our zoning laws and procedures. So do I have a second to that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or, yes, Commissioner Olivas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Ham, and just taking a look at this property on the map, I put it in Google Maps, and the photo that appears on Google Street View does look considerably worse than the photo that was taken yesterday. So do you feel that there's been some improvement here? The photo actually shows a dumpster on site here. There is no dumpster in the photo that you have from yesterday.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, my comment earlier about this is certainly not the worst version of the property. I think it's worse than when the board previously considered the evidence before it. And that's subjective. You know, I would sign that it's appropriate way. I think what I would impart on the commission is that it continues to be in violation of a number of county codes. The fire marshal has placed a no burn restriction on this because of the fire hazard that exists on the property still. And there are just things on this property and activities that are occurring that can't be done in neighborhoods. And our position is that removal of these items and the unsafe structures would offer a new opportunity for these folks to move forward in a more positive manner.
Madam Chair. And I would just say to Mr. Vallejos that, you know, I do sympathize with you here in the situation you're in. And, you know, it does appear like you're on the path, you're making some progress. But again, to the chair's point, you know, we do have these regulations for a reason. And, you know, if we begin to make exceptions for one, then we have to make exceptions for all. And so I would just encourage you to continue the progress that you're making. It's obvious that you are. You know, our staff is saying that there has been progress here, but it just hasn't been enough. And so, you know, these wheels do turn slowly. And so, you know, I hope that in the intervening time between, you know, whatever action this board takes today, that's something that you all will use to bring this more into compliance, as it seems like you're well on your way. And I just want to acknowledge the effort because, you know, I can see from these photos that there has been progress. Obviously, it hasn't been enough to satisfy those requirements, but I think you're on your way, and I would just encourage you to try to work with staff and do this in the spirit of cooperation and you know, let us help you.
So are
Thank
there
you,
any
Madam
more,
Chair.
there any more questions, discussion? Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that sounded to me like there was a difference in timeline that Mr. Vallejos pointed out. I just wanted to make sure.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, in my introductory presentation, I identified that the county began its enforcement on the property in 2021, and that was for violations of the zoning code. So there were more animals than were allowed on the property present, and the condition of the property was a violation of both the property maintenance and the zoning code. Subsequent to that, the structure fire occurred.
In 2022?
Yes, ma'am. So 2021 is when we had our first initiation of enforcement action. 2022 is when the structure fire occurred.
Mr. Vallejos,
You can welcome him up. I guess to follow up to that, so the fire doesn't have to do with this nuisance. You're saying that the nuisance abatement had started prior to that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, I would hesitate to make a hypothetical determination there because that would be something that would be considered a hearing with evidence presented. But the condition of the property was worthy of pursuit of higher level enforcement. Now, whether that was pursuit of this through a criminal complaint through the court system or pursuing it through the nuisance abatement process, I don't think I could answer that in good faith because, you know, that's not what ultimately occurred. But the culmination of the property condition issues, the structure fire, the condition of the property after the structure fire occurred, all of that in the cumulative resulted in the county determining that it was necessary to pursue this through the nuisance abatement ordinance.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to make sure, and I don't know if, I just want to make, again, I should have probably got a briefing, but Mr. Valles mentioned that in the ordinance, it says if folks are making progress within a year. If we're not, do we have a year date that says when we're marking that? Is that true, I guess?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barbeau, there's not a timeline in the ordinance. It says reasonable amount of time. And I think that we are beyond that Rubicon, in my personal opinion. I mean, we've now been through a board determination, an appeals hearing on the heels of that, and then we're here today, which was an additional 60 to 90 days. To say that they haven't been given notice or opportunity to remedy this, I think would be an unfair characterization of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Helm. I will give you 1 minute, Mr. Vallejos, to come and address the questions of Commissioner Barboa, but you just have 1 minute.
Once again, the dates were wrong. We had a fire prior to the main fire in the house, or we had someone light a fire which ignited, fire for a barbecue which ignited an RV a year prior to that. After that, we got a recommendation from the fire department to remove any flammables. So since then, this didn't start, to answer your question, Ms. Barboa, this didn't start till our fire last March, which was, just a little over a year ago. First 2 months we weren't allowed. So we've only had 10 months to work on this. What is reasonable? What is a reasonable amount of time for you guys? For a couple that's working day and night on this, what's reasonable? I guess that's up to you guys, whatever you feel is reasonable in your minds. But we've continuously been working on this. Again, we had our dates all wrong, about a year off here, so we've actually only had 10 months to work on this. Again, we've done everything they've asked, but we complete whatever they ask, they add more. It's almost like they have, I don't know what I've done to these guys personally, but
Thank you,
just
Mr.
consider
Vallejos.
the fact that we've only had 10 months and we have worked constantly on this.
Thank you, Mr. Vallejos. Mr. Helm, did you have any?
So the
Closing
first contact with enforcement staff was 12/19 of 2021. And the expectation of the county from the initial contact was that the items that are in violation of the code be removed. With the structure fire having occurred, the county's code would require this be rake clean. So all of this debris and these unpermitted structures here would need to be removed to be compliant with county code. And that's been expressed clearly and on multiple occasions to these folks. We've really tried to impart upon them what the county needs to occur for this process to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Helm. And I would say that I would like to call for a vote on this, but Mr. Vallejos, this action does not preclude you from continuing on your property, but as I've stated, we must follow our rules, and we have a recommendation before us. So I will call for the vote to deny this appeal and uphold the recommendation of staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ham. I'm sorry, Mr. Vallejos.
Who do I appeal to now? Can I appeal to the mayor's office?
Mr. Ham?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, just wanted to thank you for your time today, and that would conclude our agenda for today's proceeding.
I guess that's the question. Mr. Ham, just real quick, so Mr. Vallejos can continue to work with your staff as you proceed on this?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we resolve ourselves to work with any member of the community towards a common goal of making sure that people are safe and healthy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So item 8 is the announcement of the next zoning meeting, which is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 3 p.m. And if there's no other business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.